If you are over 60 and you wake up between 2 a.m. and 4 a.m., your brain is in immediate danger. Imagine your brain is a highly advanced, incredibly expensive engine, perhaps a classic 1965 Mustang you've kept in the garage for decades. You check the oil, you change the spark plugs, you do everything right. But what if, every single night, while you are fast asleep, someone sneaks into your garage and quietly pours a microscopic drop of acid directly into that engine block? You wouldn't notice it the first week. You wouldn't notice it the first year. But eventually, the engine seizes up entirely. This isn't a metaphor. It is exactly what is happening in the brains of millions of men and women over the age of 60 tonight. You go to bed, you close your eyes, and you think you are resting. But there is a silent, insidious symptom occurring in the darkest hours of the night. It is a symptom that 99% of people, and frankly, many general practitioners, dismiss as a normal, harmless sign of getting older. They joke about it. They accept it. But as a psychiatrist who has spent over 4 decades specializing in geriatric cognitive decline and dementia, I can tell you this. This silent nighttime symptom is not normal. It is an active emergency alarm going off inside your skull. It is the sound of your brain's defense mechanisms breaking down, leading to the rapid accumulation of the exact toxic proteins that cause Alzheimer's disease. If you are waking up in the middle of the night and attributing it to a weak bladder or stress or just aging, you are missing a critical warning sign that your brain is suffocating. Today, we are going to expose exactly what this silent symptom is, the devastating neurobiological cascade it triggers, and most importantly, the precise, science-backed protocols you must implement tonight to stop the decay and reverse the damage before it becomes irreversible. If you want to discover more science-backed insider secrets to protect your brain after 60, information that isn't sponsored by pharmaceutical companies, but grounded in pure, evidence-based medicine, make sure to hit the subscribe button right now. Your mind is your greatest asset. Let's protect it together. Let's begin by understanding what actually happens when you fall asleep, and why the most common advice you have been given about getting back to sleep is practically guaranteeing cognitive decline. Most people think of sleep as a period of inactivity, like turning off a computer or putting your television on standby. Nothing could be further from the truth. In fact, from a neurological perspective, your brain is often more active during certain stages of sleep than when you are awake. When you enter deep, slow-wave sleep, a miraculous biological mechanism activates. It is called the glymphatic system. Discovered relatively recently by neuroscientists, the glymphatic system is essentially your brain's microscopic garbage disposal and plumbing network. During the day, your neurons are firing, processing information, making memories, and keeping you alive. But this metabolic activity creates waste. The most dangerous byproduct of this cellular activity is a sticky, toxic protein called amyloid beta. If amyloid beta sounds familiar, it should. It is the primary component of the plaques found in the brains of Alzheimer's patients. Think of amyloid beta as a toxic ash left behind by a burning fire. During the day, this ash accumulates. But at night, during deep sleep, your brain cells literally shrink by up to 60%. This shrinkage widens the spaces between the cells, allowing cerebrospinal fluid to rush in and wash all that toxic amyloid beta out of your brain and into your liver to be eliminated. But here is where the catastrophic problem begins. This deep cleaning process only happens under specific conditions, primarily during uninterrupted deep sleep stages. So, what is the silent symptom that derails this entire system? It is the phenomenon of sudden, unexplained nocturnal awakenings, specifically waking up feeling wide awake, perhaps with a slightly elevated heart rate, often rationalized by the thought, "I just need to use the restroom." Let me tell you about Robert. Robert was a 68-year-old retired structural engineer who came to my practice 3 years ago. His wife brought him in because he was becoming forgetful. He was misplacing his keys, forgetting the names of his grandchildren's friends, and worst of all, he was terrified he was going to lose his driver's license and his independence. When I sat down with Robert, I asked him a standard battery of psychiatric questions. When we got to his sleep habits, he waved his hand dismissively. "My sleep is fine, Doc. I just have an old man's prostate. I get up 2, maybe 3 times a night to pee. Go right back to bed. It's normal." I looked at Robert and told him what I am about to tell you. "Robert, your bladder isn't waking you up. Your brain is waking you up, and you just happen to use the bathroom while you're awake." You see, what Robert was experiencing, and what millions of seniors experience, was subtle nocturnal airway resistance. As we age, the muscle tone in our throat relaxes. For many, this leads to a partial or complete blockage of the airway during deep sleep. It doesn't always manifest as loud, rattling snoring. Often, it is a silent drop in oxygen. It is called silent sleep apnea, or upper airway resistance syndrome. When your oxygen levels drop even slightly, your brain panics. It detects that it is suffocating. To save your life, your brain's amygdala, the primitive fear center, triggers a massive surge of adrenaline and cortisol. This chemical shockwave rips you out of deep sleep and into a lighter stage of sleep, or wakes you up entirely. You open your eyes. Your heart is beating a little faster. You feel a mild sense of alertness. And because your body is flooded with stress hormones, your kidneys are suddenly signaled to produce urine. So, you feel the urge to go to the bathroom. You blame your bladder. But in reality, your brain just survived a chemical fire drill caused by oxygen deprivation. And the tragedy? When you are jolted out of deep sleep by cortisol, the glymphatic system shuts down immediately. The cleaning cycle stops abruptly. The cerebrospinal fluid recedes. And that toxic amyloid beta? It gets left behind. Night after night, year after year, this toxic ash builds up, suffocating your neurons, destroying synapses, and rotting the memory centers of the hippocampus. Robert's mild cognitive impairment wasn't just aging. His brain was being poisoned by its own waste products because his nocturnal cortisol spikes were preventing the cleanup crew from doing their job. But it gets worse. Let's address a massive, destructive myth perpetrated by modern medical convenience. The myth that if you can't stay asleep, you just need a pill. Enter the tragedy of over-the-counter and prescription sleep aids. I cannot tell you how many patients I have seen who realized their sleep was broken, went to a pharmacy, and started taking Benadryl, Tylenol PM, Z-Quil, or got a prescription for Ambien or benzodiazepines. Let me be unequivocally clear as a psychiatrist. These drugs do not produce natural sleep. They produce a state of chemical sedation. It is the neurological equivalent of being knocked unconscious with a rubber mallet. Let me share the story of Margaret, a 72-year-old former high school English teacher. Margaret was brought to me with severe, rapidly advancing dementia symptoms. She was hallucinating, deeply confused, and had lost the ability to follow a simple plot in a television show. Her primary care doctor had already given her family the grim news: Alzheimer's. Get her affairs in order. I looked at Margaret's chart. For 10 years, she had been taking over-the-counter sleep aids containing diphenhydramine every single night because she kept waking up at 3 a.m. Diphenhydramine is a powerful anticholinergic drug. Acetylcholine is the primary neurotransmitter responsible for learning, memory, and REM sleep. Margaret was taking a drug every night that systematically blocked the very chemical her brain needed to form memories and clean itself. I immediately initiated a supervised taper to get Margaret off these anticholinergic drugs. It took 6 agonizing weeks of withdrawal. But you know what happened? 2 months later, Margaret sat in my office and discussed classic literature with me. The Alzheimer's was gone. It was pseudo-dementia, induced by the very medication she thought was helping her sleep. Chemical sedation prevents your brain from entering the precise, rhythmic architecture of sleep required for neuroregeneration. You might be unconscious for 8 hours, but your glymphatic system is barely operating. You are paralyzing the brain, not resting it. So, If we cannot rely on chemical straitjackets, and we cannot ignore the 3 a.m. wake-up calls, what is the protocol? How do we stop this silent symptom, lower nighttime cortisol, keep the airway open, and turn the brain's garbage disposal system back on at maximum capacity? Here is the 6-step clinical brain restoration sleep protocol that I use with my patients. This is not generic advice to drink chamomile tea. These are neurobiological interventions designed to protect your brain tissue. Step 1. The circadian temperature drop protocol. Your brain is intimately tied to core body temperature. To enter and stay in deep amyloid-clearing sleep, your core temperature must drop by about 2 to 3 degrees Fahrenheit. As we age, our body's ability to thermoregulate degrades. If your room is even slightly too warm, your brain will pull you out of deep sleep. You must turn your bedroom into a controlled biological refrigerator. The ambient temperature must be between 65 and 68 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 to 20 degrees Celsius. But here is the trick. While the air must be cold, your extremities must be warm. Wear socks to bed. Warming your feet dilates the blood vessels, drawing heat away from your core and sending a massive biological signal to your brain that it is time to plunge into deep, restorative sleep. Step 2. The 3-2-1 cortisol shutdown rule. Remember that waking up in the middle of the night is often a cortisol problem. Cortisol is the enemy of the glymphatic system. You must aggressively lower it before bed. 3 hours before bed, absolutely no more food. Digesting food raises your core body temperature and forces your metabolic system to work when it should be resting. 2 hours before bed, no more work, no distressing news, no financial planning. You need to transition from the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, to the parasympathetic, rest and digest. 1 hour before bed, no more liquid. We must eliminate any genuine bladder pressure so that if you do wake up, we know it is a neurological trigger, not a urological one. Step 3. The nitric oxide airway protocol, also known as mouth taping. This sounds radical, but it is one of the most profound interventions I have witnessed. Remember Robert, whose brain was suffocating? When we breathe through our mouths at night, the jaw falls back, the airway collapses, and oxygen drops. Breathing through your nose does something miraculous. It produces a gas called nitric oxide in the paranasal sinuses. Nitric oxide is a potent vasodilator. It opens up your blood vessels, lowering blood pressure and ensuring maximum oxygen delivery to the brain. By placing a small, specialized piece of porous surgical sleep tape over your lips at night, and please, as a doctor I must warn you, never use regular household tape for this. You physically force your body to breathe through the nose. This stabilizes the airway, prevents the oxygen drops, stops the adrenaline spikes, and keeps you in deep sleep. Robert started taping his mouth. He stopped waking up to use the bathroom entirely. Why? Because his brain was no longer panicking and dumping adrenaline. Step 4. The blood-brain barrier magnesium protocol. As we age, we become chronically deficient in magnesium. Magnesium is the master mineral of relaxation. It blocks the NMDA receptors in the brain from becoming overexcited. But generic magnesium oxide from the grocery store mostly just gives you diarrhea. It doesn't cross the blood-brain barrier effectively. The clinical protocol requires magnesium L-threonate, or magnesium bisglycinate. L-threonate specifically was developed by researchers at MIT because it crosses directly into the brain, calming the hyperactive neural networks that cause those abrupt 3 a.m. awakenings. Combine this with apigenin, an active compound found in chamomile that binds to the same receptors as anti-anxiety medications, but without the toxic side effects. This combination acts as a neuroprotector, shielding your brain from midnight cortisol spikes. Step 5. The morning sunlight circadian anchor. If you want to stay asleep at 2 a.m., your intervention begins at 8 a.m. Your brain operates on a 24-hour clock dictated by light. Melatonin, your sleep hormone, is not meant to be taken as a gummy bear supplement. It is supposed to be produced endogenously by your pineal gland. But your pineal gland only knows when to release melatonin at night if it received a massive dose of full-spectrum photons in the morning. Within 30 minutes of waking up, you must go outside and expose your unprotected eyes, no sunglasses, to natural sunlight for 10 to 15 minutes, even if it is cloudy. This light hits the melanopsin receptors in your eyes, travels down the optic nerve, and hits the suprachiasmatic nucleus in the brain, setting a precise biological timer. 16 hours later, like clockwork, your brain will release a tidal wave of natural melatonin, locking you into the deep sleep architecture required for amyloid clearance. Step 6. Track the architecture, not just the hours. Stop guessing. In modern psychiatry, we do not guess, we measure. You wouldn't manage your 401k without looking at the statements. Do not manage your brain health without data. Invest in a clinical-grade wearable tracker, an Oura Ring, a Whoop, or an Apple Watch. I don't care how many hours you lay in bed with your eyes closed. I care about your sleep architecture. I want to see how many minutes of deep sleep you get. I want to see your REM cycles. I want to see if your heart rate variability is recovering. If you are in bed for 8 hours but getting 0 deep sleep, you are on the express train to cognitive decline, and you need to take this data to a sleep specialist to rule out severe clinical sleep apnea. Let me tell you about Arthur. Arthur was 65, terrified because his father had died of severe Alzheimer's, and Arthur was starting to experience the same brain fog. He was waking up 3 times a night. He was exhausted. He felt his mind slipping. We didn't put him on harsh pharmaceuticals. We implemented these protocols. We dropped his room temperature. We started the L-threonate. We implemented morning sunlight and mouth taping. Within 4 weeks, Arthur's wearable device showed his deep sleep had tripled. His night awakenings dropped from 3 to 0. But the most profound change was in his eyes. The light was back. The fog had lifted. His memory scores on our clinical assessments improved by 40%. His brain wasn't decaying anymore. It was finally cleaning itself. Aging is mandatory. But dementia, memory loss, and cognitive decay are not your inevitable destiny. You have the power to protect your brain, to armor it against the ravages of time. But it requires vigilance. It requires rejecting the myths that society feeds you about normal aging and taking absolute control of your neurobiology. Your brain has served you for 6, 7, 8 decades. It has held your most precious memories, solved your toughest problems, and guided you through a lifetime of challenges. Now, it is your turn to take care of it. Stop letting the silent night symptoms suffocate your mind. Do not wait until your memory starts failing. Implement these protocols tonight. I've spent my life studying the mind, and if there is one thing I want you to remember, it's this. There is always hope, and it is never too late to start repairing the damage. If you found this information valuable, if it opened your eyes to what is truly happening in your brain, please hit the like button and share this with a loved one who needs to hear it. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so we can continue this journey of protecting your health, your memory, and your independence. I'm Dr. Richard Caldwell. Thank you for your time, and I wish you a deeply restorative, brain-healing sleep tonight. Take care of yourselves.